Hi, I'm Marty Nemko. I have focused on writing things that extol merit, meritocracy, and decry the decline of it in favor of other considerations like demographics. But I'm tired. Been beating my head against the wall for a long time. It hasn't got me anywhere. So I've written, I know this is hard to believe, but it's true, over 6,000 articles, short stories, etc. And as an antidote to my intense desire to change the world, I just picked out I think about 25 minutes worth of 2-minute stories that are not particularly political, mainly upbeat, that probably aren't going to get a lot of anger from certain readers, and just for you to enjoy. So the first one's called Ikebana Circle. These have all been published before. I've actually read these all before, but individually over years, and now I put them all together. Ikebana Circle is the first one. Ikebana is the Japanese art of flower arranging. It integrates earth at the bottom, human in the middle, and sky at the top. Often it is framed by a circle. Lily's husband died at a good age, 86, and after the appropriate period of mourning, she decided that while still able, she would have an adventure. After all, her whole adult life she was an Ikebana flower arranger. That's a life beautiful but free of adventure. So Lily took her modest inheritance and flew to San Francisco, where she knew a cafe waitress who had immigrated from her town in Japan and agreed to sponsor Lily, guaranteeing her a job. Lily started as a dishwasher, and of course didn't like it as much as Ikebana, but accepted that she needed to start somewhere. And soon she was promoted to busser, setting tables, pouring coffee, clearing tables. At night, Lily made Ikebana, which she sold to restaurants and hotels. She did it not just for the money, although she certainly could use it with the exorbitant cost of living, even in the Bay Area's bad areas, but it was spiritually renewing. Often, Lily would bring an Ikebana to the cafe and put it on the table of a customer she liked. Her favorite was an old, quiet man, simply dressed. When she put the Ikebana on his table for the third time, he asked if she would like to take a walk with him sometime. Nervous, she just mumbled thank you and scurried off with her coffee pot. But the next time he came in, she said, I would be honored to walk with you. Soon he invited her to his modest home. But after she agreed to move in with him, he said that he was a retired venture capitalist. She didn't know what that was, so he explained that his job was to find money for smaller businesses that promised to make the world better. They enjoyed the early December of their years, indeed honestly loved each other, even though sex for them could not go beyond kissing, cuddling, and fondling. And then he got Parkinson's. She not only didn't resent caring for him, she loved it, until the end, which wasn't as pleasant as her husband's end, who had died peacefully in his sleep. He left all his $26 million to her. She returned to Japan to live in her simple apartment and spent the rest of her life driving into the country giving rural high school computer teachers an Ikebana. Inside its circle was a sky represented by a cherry blossom branch, a person by shiny leaves, and on its earth, 25 million yen, $200,000. All she said to the teachers was, give it to a student who could make the world better. I'm wrong, it's $20,000. Anyway, next one is Sam's last concert. In the wings, Sam could hear the concertmaster tuning up the orchestra. Damn, my hand is shaking more than usual. It's a bad Parkinson's day. Plus, it's my last concert. I'm nervous. I'm glad I decided on the Grieg, but with these hands, nothing is easy. Sam had been a concert pianist his whole life. At age 11, he finished fourth in the Midwest Regional Young Artists Competition, and now at age 83 had performed 45 concerts, including one with the Kansas City Symphony. He thought, true, that was just the KC Symphony's summer festival when lots of the A players were on vacation, but still. Somehow I wish my ex-wife were here. How could she have dumped me? I still wish she were here tonight. Do I play it safe? A lot of note mistakes would make the audience think I stayed at it too long, like those star baseball players who'd rather hit 200 than retire. Or do I go for a home run, a chance at a write-up in the Kansas City Star? Roseman finishes with a flourish. The conductor gave Sam a forced smile, and Sam strode on stage. This is it. Deep breaths, deep breaths. Damn, my hands are shaking more. I'm taking too long. I gotta get out there. Stand up straight. Old men hunch. Stride. Don't shuffle. But Sam could manage only to shuffle on stage. He hung onto the piano with one hand as he bowed his head to the audience. If I tried to bow from the waist, I could fall. And he sat down at the piano. I've had this moment so many times, but this is different. Sam used his old trick of adjusting the seat up and then back down again, not because it needed adjusting, but to buy a little more time to ground himself before the moment of truth. And Sam began and took every reasonable risk he could, and most of the time he won. Yeah, his boldness caused a few note mistakes, but only the ignorant or mean-spirited could criticize his exciting performance. It was inspiring at any age, but for an 83-year-old with advanced Parkinson's, it gives me the chills just to tell you about it. And yes, Sam got not just the usual obligatory extended applause, bestowed as much to protest classical music's dying popularity as to acknowledge the performer, but fervent applause, and then, yes, a standing ovation. Not a charity ovation, a heartfelt one. And Sam, who usually was too shy to look at the applauding audience and so would stare at the back wall, soaked in the smiling, standing people. Then he sighed and plodded off stage for what he thought was the last time. Sam shuffled into his dressing room, closed the door, and dropped into a chair. I survived. I didn't embarrass myself, but I can't go to the reception. That's like a retirement party where everyone tries to make light of it being the beginning of the end. My end. There was a knock on the door. Daddy? His daughter opened the door and goes, You were amazing! You really were amazing! Come on, they're all waiting for you. Sam knew there was no avoiding it, so he trudged downstairs. When he arrived, the chatter morphed into applause, and he thought, No one likes long speeches, and nothing ungracious. I should be a good boy. But he couldn't resist saying what he really felt. Honestly, I can't stand the thought this will be my last performance. And he teared up. Just then, a 4-year-old toddled up to him. Do you want to play in my class? And Sam Roseman went on to play more concerts than he had in his entire life in preschools and elementary schools. First just locally, then around the country. He never got paid. Indeed, had to pay his travel expenses, but didn't begrudge it. I can't think of a better way to spend my money than to teach young kids to love classical music, and that old people aren't necessarily irrelevant. Okay, next story is called A Dog Named Yes and a Dog Named No. Hi, my name is Yes, and I used to be a cute dog, but now, having roamed the streets of Oakland for 5 months, I'm matted and, infected all over with foxtails. I am a mess. I don't blame my owner for dumping me. I couldn't stop chewing their slippers, their sofa leg, even their electric toothbrush. So this is my lot in life. Or so I thought. Then I met a dog I call No. I do that for a reason. I'm a positive doggy and don't like to be critical. Every other dog I met was nice, but No, everything was black. I mean, we even saw this great bone. Must have been a barbecued rib. I toddled to pick it up and No said, It could be rancid, even poison. Don't. I figured the chances were the bone was just fine and the person just wasn't civic-minded and so tossed it on the street. So I started chewing as No cringed. His laws, it was wonderful. Then this truck pulled up. I had seen lots of trucks before, beer trucks, sausage trucks, but this one had a sign I didn't understand. Animal control. A man and a woman got out of the truck, came up to me, and I was sure they wanted to pet me. But No screamed, Run away! They're going to trap you, take you to the pound and kill you! I didn't believe it, but this time No was right. The woman slipped this metal thing around my neck, pulled it tight, and threw me into the back of the truck. No started to run away, but the man got him too. I was scared, and No was terrified. And we got even more scared when we got to this gray building. It didn't look friendly. When we got inside, there were lots of dogs in cages, barking, whining, yelping. Was no right? Will we all get killed? The woman threw us both in the same cage. We saw 3 other dogs in the next cage, and that made me feel good. At least we weren't the only doggies there. The next day we saw that one of the dogs was gone. No said, "See?" And the day after, another dog was gone. But the one with the nice terrier was still there. Later that day, the woman who had brought us in walked by with a man. He looked at us, and I put my paws on the front of the cage and wagged my tail, and he said, "May I look at her?" But No growled, and the man said, "Never mind, may I look at that terrier over there?" The terrier wagged her tail and looked up at the man, and the man asked, "May I take her for a walk?" The woman put the terrier on a leash, and they were off. I didn't see them again, so I'm guessing she got adopted. No said, "I'm sorry," I growled. I showed him that I forgave him by licking his face. 2 days later, even I was getting very scared that we might get killed. But a nice couple walked by. Again, I put my paws on the front of the cage and wagged my tail as wildly as I could. And this time, No stayed quiet. The woman pointed to me and said, "That dog seems nice." And the woman opened the door. I was so happy, and nuzzled against his leg, and then his wife's. He cried, looked at his wife who nodded, and she said, "We'll take her." I was so happy. But what about No? Part of me wanted to stay with No. He needs a yes. But I couldn't resist having a new home. Maybe a forever home. So I toddled over to No, lifted my paw onto his face, kissed him, and said goodbye. The next story is lip gloss. At the lipstick section, Natalie told her daughter, "You're too young for lipstick. Other girls wear it." "I don't care about other girls. You're 11. You don't want to look like a tramp." "What's a tramp?" "Never mind." She pulled Julie away into the adult lipstick display, where Natalie scrutinized the lipsticks with the focus of a diamond buyer, on the mauve, blushing nude. Julie got angrier, seeing her mother bask in that rainbow of adornment. While Natalie was trying on Bare Affair, Julie stuffed a pink Minnie Mouse lip gloss into her pocket and returned to her mom, who was now on lipstick number 5, Nude Fury. Natalie asked, "How do I look?" Julie muttered, "Just great, Mom." They paid, and a man followed them out and stopped them. "Young lady, I need to see what's in your pocket." Natalie said, "I didn't take anything. Here's my receipt." "Not you, lady, the kid." Natalie protested. "Julie didn't do anything." "Yeah, kid, show your mom what nothing you did." Shaking, Julie looked up at the man, hoping for a reprieve, but he was stony, so she pulled the lip gloss from her pocket. "He said, 'You're lucky this is San Francisco. We don't prosecute under $1,000, but, Mom, you better deal with her.'" And he strode away. Julie got a surprise. Her mom hugged her and said, "Well, when I was your age, I did the same thing." Well, not exactly. It was a different color. Anyway, that's lip gloss. Next one is called An Exploding Balloon. I wanted to make some money, so in the mall, when I saw a sign in the piano store asking for a salesperson, I went in. The manager scoffed, "But you're a teenager. People buying an expensive piano won't buy from a kid." "Oh, they'll think I'm cute, and I play the piano." "Okay, piano player, play something." I knocked out the first few bars or something, and he said, "Okay, I'll try you out, but I need to control my risk. No salary, only commission. That means you only eat what you kill." "Are you going to train me?" "The only training you need is to smile a lot. Ask why they want a piano. Be enthusiastic in response. Show them 3 pianos. More overwhelms them. Fewer makes them feel they don't have enough choices. Watch and listen to their reactions. If needed, remind them of why they want a piano and say, 'My boss has authorized me to give a 20% discount today only. I could have it delivered tomorrow or Saturday. Either one work for you?'" It was overwhelming, but I didn't want to sound like I didn't understand, like I was some dumb teenager. So I just said, "Okay, what do I do now?" "Call the names on this prospect list. They've been in the store before or on a mailing list we bought of people who had clicked on an ad for pianos. When you get bored with that, stand in front of the store, and when anyone even glances at you or at a piano in the window, say, 'How'd you like to try one?' Or, 'Would you like me to play something for you?' Give people 2 choices, both of which you like, and they'll usually pick one. Oh, And wear a jacket and tie. We got to portray an upscale image. Pianos are expensive. Call after call, all I got was stuff like, sorry, or I hate telemarketers, or they hung up without a word. I told the boss that I must be doing something wrong, but he said, that's the real world, kid. You need umpteen no's to get one maybe. Take a break from the call and go outside and pitch 'em. But I got the same result, flat expressions as they walked on, sometimes a sneer, and what made me quit? You look whack. That's urban slang for ridiculous. A jacket and tie, go home, mama's boy. What made that hurt so much was that it was on top of the reaction I usually get from girls in school. For example, when I say hi, the best I get is a flat hi. And she walks on, maybe even speeds up. I feel like shit, treated so unfairly. What put me over the edge was the teacher saying that white males are privileged. I'm not privileged. Everything I've gotten, I've earned. Everything my parents got, they earned. And they're far from rich. I wanted to say that, but when I saw a kid try to argue with the teacher and she shot him down, I just held it in. But I'm like a balloon that keeps getting filled up until it bursts. We always have a rat problem in our apartment, so we keep the economy-sized rat poison around. I'm not sure what I did was right, so to be safe, I'm not going to tell you what I did so I don't cause a copycat. At the end of the trial, the judge asked if I had anything to say. I figured that reverse psychology had the best chance of working, so I fake cried. I hate myself, and I deserve the worst punishment. It worked. The judge said something like, I am moved by your contrition. I could send you to the juvenile detention center for 3 years, but I'll make it 2. 18 months with good behavior. I continued the fake agony at the same time I was wondering whether I should learn from the experience and try to pull something without getting caught. Honestly, I'm not sure. So that story is called An Exploding Balloon. The next story is called Knitting. After I got laid off at age 70, I tried to find work, but could get no better than a part-time minimum wage job as a library page. Despite years of psychotherapy, meditation, mindfulness, and so on, I found that the only way to keep my anxiety under control was to stay busy, distracting attention from any real and imagined woes. I was never an athlete and had no desire to, for example, take up golf, that staging area for the hereafter. Nor did I want to attend activities at the senior center that were to acknowledge my place on life's conveyor belt. Watch more TV? Waste of time. I liked to be productive, but at what? I never was arty. So other cliches were out. For example, the old man had his easel or wandering around with an outsized zoom lens, creating the zillionth image of nature's eye candy. I flashed on my mother, knitting a sweater. Too hard, too feminine. Can you just see me in a knitting circle? So I dismissed the idea. But knitting kept intruding. It's too hard. I'm retarded at visualizing. But maybe if it was just a scarf, that's just a rectangle, no changed angles. Maybe I should watch a YouTube video. And I did, but couldn't even get the basic knit and purl move. If I took a knitting class, it would be embarrassing, not just being a man, but I'd be so bad at it. Should I hire a tutor? I'm sure some little old lady would come to my house. No, we'd have to meet on a park bench. She might think I'm a rapist or something. I thought about placing an ad for a tutor on Craigslist, but figured that little old ladies who knit are more likely to see a note hung on a yarn store's bulletin board, if they have bulletin boards. Thorough, I went to 3 knitting stores. 2 did have bulletin boards, and the other allowed me to tape my note to the cash register counter. Not so old man, inept with crafty things, wants to see if he can learn to knit, seeking a patient tutor, 510-122-2376. I returned home to find a message on my answering machine. Yeah, I still use an answering machine, not because I don't understand how to set up voicemail, but because I like to screen calls. The message I received was this. Hello, I'm Marty Atkinson. The owner of A Good Yarn phoned me to say that you were looking for someone to show you how to knit. You're welcome to come to my apartment. I thought, well, there are 4 widows for every widower. Maybe she's eager. Feminist assertiveness has reached the senior set. So I went to Marty's apartment where I saw why she was so forward. She's bedridden with MS. I was slow to pick up even basic knitting moves, but Marty was indeed patient. In showing me, increasingly she seemed to hold my hand just a fraction of a second longer than required. And then one time she held it for a full second. I looked her in the eye, then, reminded I was on her bed, turned away. Until once I didn't. And Marty and I met weekly for knitting lessons. Before long I had made 6 scarves and sewed a label in each. Made with Love by Albert and Marty. So that story is called Knitting. The next story is called Average Jane. In school, teachers focused on the brilliant and on the slow, so Jane was pretty much ignored. Jane's classmates liked the good-looking kids and made fun of the ugly ones. They barely noticed average-looking Jane. At her 50th high school reunion, most people couldn't even recall who she was. In college, while Jane wanted to date, she felt uncomfortable trying to stand out, being perky, dressing sexily, and so on, so she was pretty much ignored. When Jane applied for jobs, her resume didn't stand out from the pile, so the best she could get was a job as a rent-a-car reservationist, where she rarely chatted much with customers or coworkers. She was eminently forgettable. Jane liked hiking and joined a meetup hiking group, but even when she approached fellow hikers, the conversation quickly petered out and they'd move on. Jane had some modest romantic relationships, but sooner or later they'd ended. When Jane asked for an explanation, the best they could come up with were things like, "There's nothing wrong with you, there's just not quite the spark." Jane thought that perhaps she could be seen as special if she worked with disabled people, so she volunteered at a group home for people with intellectual disabilities. But she had difficulty helping them and got little recognition for her efforts, so after a few Saturdays, apologetically, she quit. Next, she tried volunteering in an animal shelter. She and the doggies loved each other, but it didn't feel enough. Am I going to be ignored, not cared about by anyone except dogs and my parents who are now dead? At the end of Jane's 50th high school reunion, she trudged back to her car, gently closed the door, and cried. Would she die unexceptional, unrecognized? She sat there for 3 hours trying to concoct a basis for hope. She considered dolling herself up, puffing herself up, bubbling herself up, but in the end decided that self-acceptance was the wisest course. Jane spent her last decade in relative contentment by reading, gardening, hiking, painting, watching TV, petting dogs at the shelter, writing letters to the few people who had shown even modest interest in her, and volunteering at a suicide hotline. A go-getter might have done more to improve her lot, but average Jane had just average drive. Many people have done worse. That's average Jane. Next story is No Soap. A few months ago, my husband and I had escaped from the big city to a cottage 15 miles northeast of Grants Pass, Oregon. I have just one neighbor, a couple and their kid, who wanted to escape the urban madness as well. I say I because 2 months ago my dear husband of 51 years died. Now it's just me, my doggy Angel, and my soap operas, especially Days of Our Lives, which I've been watching since I'm 15. Angel sits on my lap and we laugh and we cry. My best friends are the Days of Our Lives character, especially dear Maggie and her late husband Mickey. Maggie's been on the show since 1973, and Mickey died in 2010. I'm still grieving, and yes, watching the reruns that I stream. I talk to the TV, urging the characters, consoling the characters, and okay, I also talk to my doggie. For example, Angel, I hate to admit it, but I like you better than most people. I can always count on your kindness and your cuddles, and all I need to do is give you kibble. Out here in the wilderness, I don't even need to walk you. You just go out the doggy door. I know you love me. You won't run away. You'll always come back, just like my dear, dear Jerry. It was an unusually windy rainstorm, so I was especially grateful to be in my soft chair with Angel on my lap. We were watching Days of Our Lives' 50th anniversary show for the 3rd time. Maggie had become crippled, and Mickey gave her red shoes, hoping that someday they would dance again. And then the power went out. With the howling wind and sheets of rain, Angel and I needed to stay inside and hope the power would come back soon. But out in the boonies, I knew it was an unlikely hope. After a day cooped up with no TV, you can imagine how I felt when someone knocked on my door. Who could have come out in this weather? When I opened the door, it was my neighbor's 12-year-old son. Come in, please. I would have thought he'd race in, but shoulders hunched, he just shuffled in without a word. I've rarely seen you. Why would you come out in this mess? My parents made me. They said you were old and I should check on you. I am old, but I'm okay, except it's not fun having no electricity. Can I get you some cookies? He nodded. I really should be going. Of course you can, but do you want to tell me a little bit about you? I don't know. I'm 12. My name's Harris. I thought, but didn't say, oh my God, Harris is the name of an evil character on Days of Our Lives, a kidnapper and attempted murderer. But I just said Harris. That's a nice name. Just then the lights came back on. Angel danced around. She seemed happier than I was. Harris said, well, I guess I should go now. I said, well, you want to watch a little TV with me? We don't have a TV, so okay. Would you mind if we watch Days of Our Lives? I stream it so we can watch whatever episode I want. He shrugged. I know all the episodes, so I chose one in which a preteen boy is the main character. Because Harris was distant, I picked the one in which Theo is diagnosed with autism. Harris stared and then got teary. I asked if he wanted to talk about it. He shook his head and said, I should go now. And I said, you can come back if you'll watch another episode. For the first time he smiled and left, walking a bit straighter. I lifted Angel onto my lap, and after I finish writing this, we're going to watch another episode. The second to the last story is called, by the way, that story is called No Soap. The second to the last story is called Sorry, I'm Not Santa. I was an enterprise software sales guy for a third-tier company, far from an Oracle. My boss didn't like my sales numbers, so just before last Christmas he said, "Gotta let you go." I asked, "Can I stay till the end of the year?" He replied, "Sorry, I'm not Santa." Unable to find a job, having been dumped from a third-tier company, after 6 months I became homeless. My best spot for panhandling was next to Whole Foods. Mainly big spenders shop there. I figured that if I'm going to get decent money, I better use my salesman's glibness. So, for example, I told a woman, "You look too smart to shop at Whole Paycheck." She dropped $2 at my feet. As a couple went by hand in hand, I said, "I see a future for you two." They gave me a 5. When an aging hippie shuffled by, I asked, "Do you know that Whole Foods was owned by a libertarian and sold out to Mega Amazon?" That didn't work so well. All I got was the finger. But I had a success I'm excited to tell you about. I saw a well-dressed man trying to negotiate 3 heavy shopping bags, and I ventured, "You look like the kind of guy who deserves an assistant. Can I help you load your car?" He looked skeptical, but nodded. I wanted to show that I was a cut above the usual homeless person, so I took 2 of the 3 bags, carefully wedged them in the trunk so they wouldn't fall, politely signaled that I was ready for the 3rd, loaded it, then closed the trunk without slamming it just hard enough. That worked. The guy must have been impressed because he said, "Would you do some weeding for me?" Using my educated tone, I said, "It would be my pleasure, sir." He replied, "Okay, get in." I efficiently and thoroughly weeded. He inspected, nodded, and said, "You seem verbal. How'd you like to answer my home phone?" Using the aforementioned affect, I said, "I'd be delighted, sir." Over the next months, he gave me more and more responsibility and money, and soon asked me to be his assistant director of sales. He was a cheese importer with pay higher than when I was in software. Christmas was coming, and my boss was having his annual Christmas party. He said, "The RSVPs are coming in light. Would you like to invite someone? I need to create the right impression. Need to have a lot of people here." So I called my former sales manager and I lied. I said that I'm a house cleaner for a rich guy who's having a Christmas party, and he asked me to invite a couple of friends. I thought you might like it. Good food, champagne, a way to get sales leads. He showed up, and there I was, dressed and acting like the assistant director of sales I am. I told him my true title and that I lied to him because I didn't want to be a show-off, and he said, "Actually, they laid me off. Could I ask your boss if he might consider me for a job?" I said, "Sorry, I'm not Santa." Anyway, that story is Sorry, I'm Not Santa. And the final story is called Puff the Sequel. In the song Puff the Magic Dragon, the boy grew up, went away, and Puff that mighty dragon sadly slipped into his cave. A few months later, by that sea in a town called Honolulu, the girl, who was picking up seashells by the seashore, saw a cave. Scared, but more curious than scared, she peeked inside and took another step, then another, and more steps, and then she saw, sleeping, Puff. Puff opened his eyes, and the girl took a step back, but Puff whimpered, and she stopped. Puff gave her the kindest, most grateful look. After all, it had been months since the boy left for college. The girl took a step toward Puff, and Puff smiled. So she took another step, and then Puff swished his tail toward her. She backed away, but Puff whimpered again, and she stopped. Gently, Puff wrapped his tail around her. She worried. Will he crush me like a boa constrictor? But her intuition said no, and Puff, of course, merely gave her a Puff hug. And so, as Puff had with the boy, they frolicked in the autumn mist. But soon it was time for the girl to go to college, and so, as the boy did, she hugged Puff and left. And the dragon bowed his head, crept into his cave, and cried. But soon the girl returned. She had missed Puff, but this time, rather than frolic on the beach, she took his mighty paw and brought him, Allied Van Lines, to college. Of course, on campus, everyone was terrified, and campus security sounded the sirens. But the girl explained, whereupon campus security said, "There's only one place on campus we'll allow a trial hour, the safe space. Puff more than passed the trial and within a month replaced the chicken as the college's mascot. Puff pranced before, at halftime, and at the end of every winning football, basketball, and even volleyball game. The college even renamed the stadium, without even, like most naming rights, requiring a $1 zillion donation. The stadium would evermore be called Puff the Magic Stadium. Anyway, those are some of my very favorite stories. As usual, I welcome your thumbs up. Accept your thumbs down. Always look forward to your comments, especially like it if you hit the share button below. Share on your social media so that my efforts can have broader impact. And I am flattered if you choose to subscribe to my channel. And certainly would welcome you checking out any of my 34 books. Lots of them are short stories. I can't tell you which is most relevant. I don't know. I guess my favorite, relevance would be light. I have two books, a pair of books, light and dark. This one is light, probably better fit for this. But all 34 are on Amazon. Just go there, search on my name, Marty Nemko, Nemko, and you will find more than you can stomach. And because this is a podcast, I like to end every one of these podcasts with my very favorite saying. It's not my own. It's from Frank A. Clark. It seems more relevant today than ever in my long lifetime. We find comfort among those who agree with us, growth among those who don't.